Capricornus, the sea goat, a journey through ancient waters, celestial mysteries, and timeless transformation. In the quiet depth of a summer evening, when the sky transitions from the blazing heat of day into the velvet coolness of night, there exists a particular hour when the celestial sphere reveals its most ancient secrets. This is the time when the zodiacal constellations parade across the southern horizon, those 12 patterns that mark the sun's annual journey through the heavens. Among these venerable star groups, there exists one whose form is perhaps the most unusual, the most enigmatic, the most deeply rooted in the mythology of multiple ancient civilizations. This is Capricornus, the sea goat, a creature that is part terrestrial animal and part aquatic being, a hybrid form that speaks to transformation, duality, and the mysterious boundary between different realms of existence. Tonight, as darkness settles and the first stars pierce the twilight, we seek this constellation in the southern reaches of the sky. Capricornus occupies a modest region of the celestial sphere, spanning approximately 414 square degrees, making it the 40th largest constellation among the 88 recognized by the International Astronomical Union. Despite its relatively large area, Capricornus is not a prominent constellation to the casual observer. Its stars are generally faint, with no first-magnitude stars to draw the eye, no dramatically bright beacons to compete with the brilliance of Vega or Arcturus or Sirius. Yet this very subtlety, this quiet presence in the heavens, carries its own kind of dignity and ancient authority. To locate Capricornus, one must look toward the southern sky during the months of late summer and early autumn in the northern hemisphere, particularly during August and September, when the constellation reaches its highest point above the horizon during evening hours. It sits in a region of sky that ancient astronomers called the Celestial Sea or the Water region, surrounded by other constellations with aquatic associations. To the west lies Sagittarius the Archer, to the east flows Aquarius the Water Bearer, to the south swims Piscis Austrinus the Southern Fish, and to the north lies the small constellation Aquila the Eagle. This placement within a watery realm is appropriate for a creature that is half fish, half goat, a being that belongs to both land and sea. The outline of Capricornus, when traced through its principal stars, suggests a triangular or arrowhead shape pointing roughly eastward. The brightest star in the constellation, designated Delta Capricorni and known by the name Deneb Algedi, marks the tail of the sea goat. From there, a chain of stars traces the creature's body, curving upward to suggest the head and horns of a goat, while the lower portion of the pattern hints at the fishtail that gives this hybrid creature its distinctive character. Ancient observers saw in these relatively faint stars the complete form of a magnificent being, a goat with the tail of a fish swimming through the celestial ocean. The very concept of a sea goat, a creature combining terrestrial and aquatic features, might seem strange to modern sensibilities. We are accustomed to clear categories, to distinctions between land animals and sea creatures, between the domains of earth and water. Yet ancient mythologies often featured such hybrid beings, creatures that transcended simple categories and embodied the liminal spaces between different realms. The sea goat represents transformation, adaptation, the ability to survive in multiple environments, and the wisdom that comes from understanding different modes of existence. Before we delve into the specific Greek mythology most commonly associated with Capricornus, we must first understand that this constellation has roots extending far deeper into human history than classical Greece. The Babylonians, whose astronomical observations and records date back to the 2nd millennium before the Common Era, recognized a constellation in this region of sky that they called Suhamash, meaning goat fish. This Babylonian identification of a hybrid goatfish creature predates Greek astronomy by more than 1,000 years, demonstrating that the association of this star pattern with such a being represents one of the most ancient and persistent constellation identifications in human culture. The Sumerians, who preceded the Babylonians in Mesopotamia, and whose civilization flourished from approximately the 4th millennium before the Common Era, also knew of a goatfish deity. This god was associated with Enki, later known as E in Babylonian mythology, the deity of wisdom, water, creation, and intelligence. Enki was one of the most important gods in the Sumerian pantheon, credited with creating humanity, teaching civilizations arts, and maintaining the cosmic order. His association with both fresh water and the sea, with both wisdom and practical knowledge, made him a complex and powerful figure in ancient Near Eastern religion. The connection between Enki and the goatfish form relates to his role as lord of the subterranean waters, the Abzu, a mysterious realm beneath the earth from which fresh water springs and rivers were believed to flow. Enki's dwelling was in this watery underworld, and he was often depicted in art as a figure surrounded by flowing water, sometimes with streams containing fish flowing from his shoulders. The goatfish creature associated with him, called Capricornus in later Greek and Roman astronomy, symbolized Enki's dominion over both the terrestrial and aquatic realms, his ability to navigate between different worlds, his role as a mediator between gods and humans. This ancient Mesopotamian background is essential for understanding the constellation Capricornus, for it reveals that the identification of this star pattern with a hybrid goatfish creature was not a Greek invention, but rather an inheritance from earlier civilizations. The transmission of astronomical knowledge from Mesopotamia to Greece occurred gradually over many centuries, through trade contacts, cultural exchanges, and the movement of people and ideas throughout the ancient Near East and Mediterranean. By the time Greek astronomy reached its mature form in the classical and Hellenistic periods, it had absorbed and adapted many Babylonian constellation patterns and astronomical concepts. The Greek mythology most directly associated with Capricornus centers on Pan, the god of shepherds, flocks, mountain wilderness, and rustic music. Pan was a distinctly unusual figure in the Greek pantheon, not one of the great Olympian gods, but rather a more ancient, rustic deity whose worship was particularly strong in Arcadia, the mountainous region of central Peloponnese. Pan was depicted as a satyr-like figure with the horns, legs, and ears of a goat, the torso and arms of a man, and a distinctive appearance that was simultaneously divine and bestial, civilized and wild. The name Pan itself is interesting, possibly deriving from the Greek word for shepherd or from an older root meaning to pasture or to feed. Some ancient and modern interpreters have connected his name to the Greek word pan meaning all or everything, suggesting that Pan represented the totality of nature, the all-encompassing force of the wild places beyond human civilization. He was associated with wild, rugged landscapes, with caves and groves, with the sudden inexplicable fears that can grip travelers in isolated places, fears the Greeks called panic, named for the god who supposedly caused them. Pan was particularly famous for his musical talent, specifically his mastery of the pan flute or syrinx, a musical instrument consisting of pipes of varying lengths bound together. The myth explaining the origin of this instrument tells of Pan's unrequited love for the nymph Syrinx. According to the story, Pan pursued the nymph through the wilderness, but she fled from him, eventually reaching a river where she could go no further. She called out to the river nymphs for help, and they transformed her into a stand of reeds just as Pan reached her. When Pan grasped what he thought was the nymph, he found himself holding only reeds. As he sighed in disappointment, his breath passed through the reeds and created a haunting, beautiful sound. Charmed by this music, Pan cut the reeds to different lengths and bound them together, creating the first pan flute, which he named Syrinx after the nymph he had lost. This myth of transformation, of a being changing from one form to another to escape danger or pursuit, resonates with the story of how Pan became associated with the constellation Capricornus. The most common version of this tale involves the battle between the Olympian gods and the monstrous Typhon, the deadliest creature in Greek mythology. Typhon was born from Gaia, the earth, and Tartarus, the deep abyss, specifically to challenge Zeus and the Olympian gods who had overthrown the previous generation of Titans. Typhon was enormous beyond comprehension, his head reaching to the stars, his arms spanning from east to west, his body covered with serpents, his eyes shooting fire. When Typhon rose up against the gods, they fled in terror to Egypt, according to one version of the myth. As they fled, each god transformed themselves into an animal to hide from the monster. Pan, in his panic, threw himself into the Nile River, or in some versions another body of water. In his haste and fear, his transformation was incomplete or hybrid. The part of his body that was underwater became a fish tail, while the part that remained above water retained its goat form. Thus Pan became the goatfish, the hybrid creature that would be immortalized in the heavens as the constellation Capricornus. This story of transformation through fear, of taking on a new form for survival, carries deep symbolic resonance. Pan, the wild god of nature, the figure who himself caused panic in others, was not immune to fear. Even the gods, the immortals, could experience terror and vulnerability. The transformation into a hybrid form, part goat and part fish, represents an adaptation to circumstances, a creative solution to an impossible situation, even if that solution resulted in an awkward or incomplete change. The sea goat embodied the idea that survival sometimes requires becoming something you were not before, accepting a changed identity in order to continue existing. Some ancient sources provide alternative versions of how Pan became associated with Capricornus. One tradition held that Pan helped Zeus in his battle against the Titans by creating a great blast of sound with his conch shell, striking fear into the Titans and contributing to their defeat. As a reward for this service, Zeus placed Pan's image among the stars. Another version suggested that the constellation represented Aegipan, a related but distinct figure sometimes identified with Pan, but sometimes treated as a separate goat-footed deity. Aegipan, according to these accounts, helped Zeus recover his severed sinews after Typhon had defeated and mutilated him, an act crucial to Zeus's eventual victory over the monster. The Roman poet Ovid, in his Metamorphoses, describes the scene of the gods fleeing to Egypt and transforming themselves. He mentions how the horned Ammon, an Egyptian deity syncretized with Zeus, took the form of a ram. Apollo became a crow, Diana a cat, Bacchus a goat, and Aphrodite and her son Eros became fish. This Roman interpretation of the myth connects the Greek gods to Egyptian animal deities, suggesting an interpretatio Graeca, the Greek practice of identifying foreign gods with their own deities. The transformation of the gods into animal forms in Egypt provided an explanation for why Egyptian gods were often depicted with animal heads or forms. Beyond the Greek myths, other ancient cultures recognized this constellation and associated it with their own deities and stories. The ancient Babylonian astronomical text, known as the Emuelapin, dating to approximately the 12th or 11th century before the Common Era, lists the constellation we now call Capricornus as Suhamash. This text formed part of a larger compendium of astronomical and astrological knowledge, providing information about the rising and setting of various stars and constellations, their positions relative to the ecliptic, and their significance for calendar keeping and divination. In Babylonian astrology, which formed the foundation for later Hellenistic and ultimately modern Western astrology, the region of sky corresponding to Capricornus was associated with the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year when the sun reaches its southernmost point in the sky. This association with the turning point of the year, when the sun begins its journey back toward longer days and the eventual return of spring, gave the sea goat symbolic connections to renewal, persistence, and the ability to survive difficult times. The zodiacal significance of Capricornus, as the 10th sign of the zodiac in astrological tradition, adds another layer of meaning to this constellation. In astrology, which must be distinguished from the scientific discipline of astronomy, Capricornus or Capricorn is associated with ambition, discipline, responsibility, and the ability to endure challenges. These characteristics, whether one accepts astrological premises or not, reflect ancient observations about the time of year when the sun appears in this region of sky and the qualities necessary for survival during winter's onset. The stars of Capricornus themselves, those faint points of light that ancient observers connected into the form of a sea goat, are each fascinating worlds in their own right when examined through the tools of modern astronomy. Let us consider the principal stars that define this constellation, beginning with the brightest and working through the pattern that traces the creature's form. Deneb Algedi, the brightest star in Capricornus, is actually a system of multiple stars located approximately 39 light-years from Earth. The primary star is a white giant or subgiant that has exhausted the hydrogen in its core and begun the process of stellar evolution that will eventually transform it into a red giant. The name Deneb Algedi comes from the Arabic phrase meaning the tail of the goat, indicating its position at the tail end of the sea goat's form. This star is a member of a quadruple star system, meaning that 4 stars orbit their common center of mass in a complex gravitational dance. The 2 main components are relatively close together, orbiting each other in just over 1,000 days, while 2 fainter companions orbit at greater distances. Alpha Capricorni, despite its designation as the constellation's alpha star, which typically indicates the brightest star, is actually only the 3rd brightest star in Capricornus. This discrepancy arose from the Bayer designation system developed by Johannes Bayer in his Euronometria Star Atlas, published in the year 1603. Bayer assigned Greek letters to stars generally in order of brightness within each constellation, but with various exceptions and irregularities. Alpha Capricorni is itself a double star system, consisting of 2 stars both called by variants of the name Algedi or Algidi, derived from Arabic and meaning the goat or the kid. The 2 stars of Alpha Capricorni, designated Prima Gedi and Secunda Gedi, appear close together in the sky but are actually at vastly different distances from Earth. Prima Gedi lies approximately 690 light-years away, while Secunda Gedi is only about 109 light-years distant. They merely happen to lie in nearly the same direction as viewed from Earth, a coincidence of perspective rather than a true physical association. Each of these stars is itself a binary system, meaning that Alpha Capricorni overall consists of 4 stars in 2 widely separated pairs, a fitting complexity for a constellation representing a hybrid creature. Beta Capricorni, known by the name Dabi, from Arabic meaning the lucky one of the slaughterers or possibly fortune of the slaughterers, is another multiple star system. The name's meaning remains somewhat obscure, possibly relating to ancient Arabic lunar mansions or to rituals performed when the sun entered this region of the zodiac. Dabi lies approximately 344 light-years from Earth and consists of at least 3 component stars, with the brightest being an orange giant star that has swollen in size as it ages and moved off the main sequence of stable hydrogen-burning stars. Gamma Capricorni, called Nashira from Arabic meaning the bearer of good news or the announcer, is located approximately 139 light-years from Earth. This star is a white giant or subgiant, somewhat evolved from the main sequence, but not yet in its final stages of stellar life. The meanings of these Arabic star names, preserved through medieval Islamic astronomy, reflect the cultural and astrological significance these stars held for Arab astronomers who carefully observed and catalogued the heavens during the centuries when much astronomical knowledge was lost in Europe. The pattern formed by these and the fainter stars of Capricornus creates a distinctive, if not especially prominent shape in the southern summer sky. The constellation's location along the ecliptic, the apparent path of the sun through the constellations over the course of a year, means that the moon and planets regularly pass through Capricornus as they orbit the sun or, in the moon's case, orbit Earth. Observers who monitor the positions of planets throughout the year will periodically find Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, or the other planets positioned within or near the boundaries of Capricornus, their bright points standing out against the constellation's generally fainter stars. The astronomical significance of Capricornus extends beyond its individual stars to several notable deep sky objects visible within its boundaries. Messier 30, a globular cluster catalogued by the French astronomer Charles Messier in his famous catalogue of non-cometary objects, lies within Capricornus. This cluster, located approximately 28,000 light-years from Earth, contains several 100,000 stars bound together by gravity into a spherical swarm. Globular clusters are among the oldest objects in our galaxy, typically dating to 10 or 12 billion years in age, formed in the early generations after the Milky Way first assembled from smaller protogalactic fragments. Observing Messier 30 through a telescope reveals a hazy patch of light that with sufficient magnification resolves into individual stars at the cluster's edges, though the dense core remains a blur of unresolvable starlight even in large amateur instruments. The stars in globular clusters are predominantly old, metal-poor stars, meaning they contain relatively few elements heavier than hydrogen and helium. This chemical composition reflects their formation in the early universe when fewer heavy elements had been synthesized by previous generations of stars. The study of globular clusters provides crucial information about galactic history, stellar evolution, and the age of the universe itself. Several galaxies are also visible within the boundaries of Capricornus, though most require moderately large telescopes to observe. These distant island universes, lying millions of light-years beyond our own Milky Way, appear as faint smudges of light in photographs and visual observations. Each contains billions of stars, their own populations of planets, nebulae, and stellar phenomena. The light we receive from these galaxies began its journey toward Earth millions of years ago, when our own planet was in vastly different states, perhaps inhabited by distant evolutionary ancestors of modern humans or even earlier life forms. The ancient astronomers who first identified and named Capricornus had no knowledge of globular clusters or distant galaxies. They possessed no telescopes, no photographic plates, no spectroscopes to analyze starlight. Yet their careful observations of stellar positions, their tracking of planetary motions, and their patient recording of celestial phenomena over many generations laid the foundation for all later astronomy. The Babylonian astronomers, who first systematically catalogued the constellations and tracked planetary movements, created mathematical models that could predict eclipses and planetary positions with remarkable accuracy. The Mul. Apin tablets, those Babylonian astronomical texts dating to the late 2nd millennium before the Common Era, represent some of the earliest systematic astronomical records. These clay tablets contain lists of stars and constellations, information about their rising and setting times, and various astronomical omens used in Babylonian astrology and divination. The tablets divide the year into 12 months and track the positions of celestial bodies relative to the ecliptic and the celestial equator. This systematic approach to celestial observation, recording, and calculation represents a crucial step in the development of astronomy as a science. The transmission of this Babylonian astronomical knowledge to Greece occurred through various channels over many centuries. Greek scholars traveling in the Near East, Persian and Babylonian scholars teaching in Greek cities, the translation of texts following Alexander the Great's conquests, all of these contributed to the gradual absorption of Mesopotamian astronomy into Greek intellectual culture. By the Hellenistic period, following Alexander's death in 323 before the Common Era, a synthesis had occurred that combined Greek geometric and philosophical approaches with Babylonian observational data and computational techniques. Hipparchus of Nicaea, working in the 2nd century before the Common Era, represents the culmination of this synthesis. Hipparchus is credited with creating the first comprehensive star catalogue in the Greek astronomical tradition, listing approximately 850 stars with their positions and magnitudes. He discovered the precession of the equinoxes, that slow wobble in Earth's rotation that shifts the position of the celestial poles over a 26,000-year cycle. He developed trigonometric techniques for astronomical calculations and made precise observations of the sun's motion and the moon's orbit. Though his original works have been lost, his observations and methods were incorporated into Ptolemy's Almagest 3 centuries later and thus preserved for posterity. Claudius Ptolemy, working in Alexandria in the 2nd century of the Common Era, compiled his great astronomical treatise the Almagest, which would remain the definitive work on astronomy for over 14 centuries. In this work, Ptolemy catalogued 48 constellations, including Capricornus, providing coordinates and descriptions derived from Hipparchus and other earlier astronomers. Ptolemy's geocentric model of the universe, with Earth at the center and all celestial bodies revolving around it in combinations of circular motions, could predict planetary positions with reasonable accuracy and explained most observed celestial phenomena within its framework. The Almagest represents the pinnacle of ancient astronomical achievement, synthesizing centuries of observations and theoretical developments into a comprehensive and mathematically sophisticated system. Although we now know that Ptolemy's geocentric model is incorrect, that Earth orbits the Sun rather than vice versa, his work remains impressive as a demonstration of human intellectual capability and the power of mathematical modeling. Ptolemy worked within the scientific and philosophical assumptions of his time, using the observational tools available to him, and created a system that worked remarkably well for its intended purposes. After the collapse of the Western Roman Empire in the 5th century, most of this Greek astronomical knowledge was lost in Western Europe, though it was preserved and expanded upon in the Islamic world. Beginning in the 8th century, Islamic scholars undertook a massive translation project, rendering Greek scientific and philosophical texts into Arabic. Observatories were established in Baghdad, Damascus, Cairo, and other cities throughout the Islamic world. Arab astronomers made new observations, corrected errors in Greek star catalogues, discovered new stars, and developed improved mathematical techniques for astronomical calculations. The astronomer known in the West as Al-Bumassar, whose full name was Abu Mashar Jafar ibn Muhammad al-Balkhi, worked in the 9th century and wrote extensively on astrology and astronomy, helping to transmit Greek astronomical knowledge to later medieval European scholars. Al-Battani, working in the late 9th and early 10th centuries, made highly accurate observations of the sun's motion and improved upon Ptolemy's astronomical tables. Abd al-Rahman al-Sufi in the 10th century created the Book of Fixed Stars, which described the constellations and provided improved magnitude estimates for hundreds of stars. His work included careful observations of what would later be recognized as the Andromeda Galaxy, the first recorded observation of a deep sky object beyond our own Milky Way galaxy. These Islamic astronomers used Capricornus in their astrological and astronomical systems, inheriting the Babylonian and Greek traditions while adding their own observations and interpretations. The Arabic names for the constellation stars, names like Deneb Algedi, Dabi, and Nashira, preserve the linguistic legacy of this Islamic astronomical tradition. When this knowledge returned to Western Europe through translations from Arabic to Latin beginning in the 12th century, particularly through the Toledo School of Translators in Spain, it sparked a revival of astronomical learning that would eventually lead to the scientific revolution. The Renaissance brought renewed interest in classical learning and new approaches to understanding nature. Nicolaus Copernicus, in the early 16th century, proposed a heliocentric model of the solar system that placed the Sun at the center with Earth and the other planets orbiting around it. This revolutionary idea challenged both Ptolemaic astronomy and prevailing theological interpretations of humanity's place in creation. Copernicus's De Revolutionibus Orbium Celestium, published in 1543, initiated a transformation in astronomy that would take more than a century to fully develop. Johannes Kepler, using precise observational data collected by Tycho Brahe, determined that planets move in elliptical rather than circular orbits and discovered the mathematical relationships describing planetary motion that we now call Kepler's laws. These discoveries, published in the early 17th century, provided the foundation for Isaac Newton's later development of universal gravitation and the laws of motion. Galileo Galilei, using the newly invented telescope, observed mountains on the Moon, discovered 4 moons orbiting Jupiter, saw phases of Venus, and observed countless stars invisible to the naked eye, all providing evidence supporting the heliocentric model. Throughout these revolutionary changes in scientific understanding, the constellations remained constant in appearance. Capricornus continued its nightly journey across the southern summer sky, its stars arranged in the same pattern that Babylonian astronomers had observed 3,000 years earlier. The myths associated with the constellation persisted alongside the new scientific knowledge, demonstrating that narrative and measurement, poetry and mathematics mythology and science could coexist as complementary ways of engaging with the heavens. The development of spectroscopy in the 19th century allowed astronomers to analyze starlight and determine stellar composition, temperature, motion, and other physical properties. When the stars of Capricornus were studied spectroscopically, each revealed its individual characteristics. Deneb Algedi showed the spectrum of a white star with specific absorption lines indicating its temperature and chemical composition. The giant stars like Dabby displayed the molecular bands characteristic of cooler, evolved stars with extended atmospheres. These observations confirmed that stars are indeed distant suns, similar to our own sun but at various stages of stellar evolution. The 20th century brought the development of quantum mechanics and nuclear physics, finally explaining how stars generate energy through nuclear fusion in their cores. The life cycle of stars became understood in detail, from their formation in molecular clouds through their main sequence phase of stable hydrogen burning to their ultimate fates as white dwarfs, neutron stars, or black holes, depending on their initial mass. The stars of Capricornus, studied in this modern astrophysical framework, are each revealed as unique individuals with their own histories and futures. Modern astronomical observations have also revealed that many stars in Capricornus host planetary systems. While no planets have been detected around the constellation's brightest stars, as of the knowledge available to us, several fainter stars within Capricornus's boundaries have been found to harbor exoplanets through various detection methods. These discoveries remind us that planetary systems are common throughout the galaxy, that worlds orbit stars in every direction we look, and that the universe is far more populated with planets than earlier generations could have imagined. The search for life beyond Earth has become a major focus of modern astronomy and astrobiology. Scientists are developing techniques to analyze the atmospheres of exoplanets, looking for chemical signatures that might indicate biological activity. Future space telescopes may be able to detect oxygen, methane, or other gases in planetary atmospheres that could be produced by living organisms. Whether any of the stars in Capricornus harbor life-bearing worlds remains unknown, but the statistical probability suggests that among the hundreds of stars visible within the constellation's boundaries, at least some likely have planets where conditions might be suitable for life. The constellation Capricornus, viewed in this modern scientific context, becomes more than just a pattern of stars connected by mythological imagination. It represents a window onto a vast region of space containing stars at various evolutionary stages, ancient globular clusters from the early universe, distant galaxies billions of light years away, and potentially countless planets where unimaginable phenomena occur. Each point of light within this constellation has its own story extending back to the formation of our galaxy and forward into an unimaginable future. Yet the mythological significance of Capricornus remains meaningful even in our scientific age. The image of the sea goat, the hybrid creature combining terrestrial and aquatic features, continues to resonate as a symbol of transformation, adaptation, and the ability to navigate different realms. The story of Pan transforming in the face of danger, becoming something new in order to survive, speaks to experiences that remain relevant in human life. The necessity of change, the courage required to adapt, the sometimes awkward or incomplete nature of our transformations. The duality embodied by the sea goat, part goat and part fish, can be understood as representing the dual nature of human existence itself. We are creatures of matter and consciousness, of body and mind, of earth and aspiration. We are bound to our physical nature, subject to biological needs and limitations, yet capable of abstract thought, imagination, and spiritual experience. Like the sea goat, we inhabit multiple realms simultaneously, navigating between different modes of being. The association of Capricornus with the winter solstice, that astronomical moment when the sun reaches its southernmost point and begins its return journey toward longer days, carries its own symbolic weight. The winter solstice represents the darkest point of the year, the moment when darkness is at its maximum, yet it is also the turning point when light begins to return. This paradox, that the moment of greatest darkness contains within it the promise of returning light, has made the winter solstice significant in cultures throughout the world. Ancient peoples marked the winter solstice with festivals and rituals, celebrating the sun's survival and eventual strengthening. The Roman festival of Saturnalia, celebrated around the solstice, involved feasting, gift-giving, and a temporary reversal of social hierarchies. The Christian celebration of Christmas, placed near the winter solstice, incorporated elements from earlier pagan solstice festivals while commemorating the birth of Christ. Other cultures developed their own solstice traditions, all responding to this crucial astronomical moment when the year turns and the cycle begins anew. The placement of Capricornus at this symbolically significant time of year, when the sun occupies this region of the zodiac during the solstice period, connects the constellation to themes of endurance, survival, and renewal. The sea goat, able to inhabit both land and water, becomes a figure representing the ability to survive difficult transitions, to adapt to changing circumstances, to persist through challenging times. These qualities, whether attributed to the constellation through astrological tradition or simply recognized as meaningful symbolism, give Capricornus a significance beyond its modest visual prominence. The faintness of Capricornus's stars, which might seem like a disadvantage compared to more brilliant constellations, carries its own lesson. Not all important things announce themselves with brightness and drama. Sometimes the most significant patterns require patience and attention to perceive. The sea goat swims quietly through the celestial sea, visible to those who take the time to look carefully, who learn to navigate by subtle markers rather than only following the brightest lights. In practical terms, Capricornus can be located by first finding the summer triangle, that prominent asterism formed by the bright stars Vega, Deneb, and Altair, which dominates the overhead sky during summer evenings in the northern hemisphere. From the summer triangle, one can trace southward to find the Milky Way stretching across the sky, then follow it to the region where Sagittarius and Capricornus lie. Sagittarius, with its distinctive teapot asterism, is easier to spot and can serve as a guide to finding Capricornus immediately to its east. Alternatively, one can use the fact that Capricornus lies along the ecliptic, the path followed by the sun, moon, and planets. If any bright planets are visible in the southern summer sky, they may be positioned near or within Capricornus, making the constellation easier to locate. The faint stars of the sea goat then reveal themselves surrounding the brilliant planetary visitor, the ancient pattern providing context for the wandering celestial body. The experience of observing Capricornus from a dark sky location, far from city lights, reveals more of the constellation structure than is visible from urban areas. Under truly dark skies, fainter stars emerge that fill in the pattern, suggesting more clearly the form of the creature. The Milky Way, that luminous band of our galaxy's disk seen edge-on, flows through this region of sky, providing a glowing backdrop against which the constellation's stars stand out. Binoculars or a small telescope reveal numerous additional stars, double star systems, and the globular cluster Messier 30. The changing seasons bring different constellations to prominence, and as autumn progresses toward winter, Capricornus shifts westward in the evening sky, eventually setting earlier and being replaced by the winter constellations. This seasonal progression, the rising and setting of different star patterns throughout the year, reflects Earth's orbit around the Sun. As our planet journeys through space, our nighttime view looks out toward different directions, revealing different portions of the celestial sphere at different times of year. Ancient peoples understood this connection between celestial patterns and terrestrial seasons, using the stars as a calendar to track the passage of time. The heliacal rising of certain stars, their first appearance in the dawn sky after a period of being invisible due to the sun's glare, marked specific times of year for planting, harvesting, religious festivals, and other important events. The annual reappearance of Capricornus in the evening sky signaled to ancient observers the approach of autumn and the need to prepare for winter's challenges. This practical use of astronomy, employing the stars for timekeeping and navigation, coexisted with their mythological and religious significance. The constellations served multiple functions simultaneously, as calendar markers, as navigational guides, as representations of sacred stories, and as objects of aesthetic appreciation. This multiplicity of meaning, rather than representing confusion, demonstrates the richness of ancient relationships with the night sky. The ancient Greek philosopher Plato, in his dialogue Timaeus, described how the creator deity, the demiurge, fashioned the cosmos as a living, rational being, with the celestial bodies serving as instruments for measuring time. The movements of the sun, moon, planets, and stars were not random, but followed mathematical principles that allowed humans to track days, months, years, and longer cycles. This philosophical understanding of the cosmos as an ordered, rational system that could be comprehended through mathematics and observation laid the foundation for the development of scientific astronomy. Aristotle, Plato's student, developed a comprehensive cosmological system that would dominate Western thought for nearly 2,000 years. In Aristotle's cosmology, the universe was divided into two fundamentally different regions: the sublunary realm, the region below the moon including Earth, characterized by change, corruption, and imperfection, and the superlunary realm, the region of the moon and beyond, characterized by perfection, unchanging motion, and eternal celestial matter. The stars and planets were embedded in crystalline spheres that rotated around Earth, producing celestial motions. This Aristotelian cosmology, though incorrect by modern scientific standards, represented a sophisticated attempt to create a comprehensive explanation of observed phenomena using the philosophical and scientific tools available at the time. The system was logical, internally consistent, and aligned with everyday observations that suggested Earth was stationary while the heavens moved overhead. It also resonated with religious and philosophical views about the perfection of the divine realm and the imperfection of the earthly realm. The medieval Christian adaptation of Aristotelian cosmology, particularly as synthesized by Thomas Aquinas in the 13th century, integrated this Greek philosophical framework with Christian theology. The heavenly spheres became associated with various levels of divine presence, with God dwelling beyond the outermost sphere of the fixed stars. The celestial motions were understood as expressing divine rationality and order, with the mathematical patterns observable in astronomy reflecting the mathematical mind of the Creator. Within this medieval Christian cosmology, the zodiacal constellations, including Capricornus, maintained their classical identifications but were sometimes given Christian interpretations. Some medieval scholars saw the constellations as prefigurations of Christian truths or as instruments of divine providence. The fact that Christ's birth was placed near the winter solstice, when the sun entered Capricorn, gave this constellation particular significance in some interpretations. Though such astrological readings were viewed with suspicion by many church authorities, who worried about deterministic implications that might conflict with doctrines of free will and divine sovereignty. The tension between astronomical observation and astrological interpretation, between the descriptive study of celestial phenomena and the predictive or interpretive claims about their influence on earthly affairs, has existed throughout the history of astronomy. In ancient and medieval times, astronomy and astrology were not clearly separated disciplines. The same scholars who made careful observations of planetary positions and calculated astronomical tables also cast horoscopes and made astrological predictions. The distinction between these practices, which seems obvious to us today, was not so clear in earlier periods. The gradual separation of astronomy from astrology occurred slowly during the Renaissance and scientific revolution. As astronomical observations became more precise, and as physical explanations for celestial phenomena were developed, the causal mechanisms proposed by astrology became increasingly untenable. If planets were physical bodies following mathematical laws of motion rather than divine beings or mysterious influences, how could they affect human personality or destiny? The development of Newtonian mechanics in the late 17th century provided a comprehensive physical framework for understanding celestial motions that left no room for astrological influences. Yet astrology persisted and continues to this day as a popular practice, despite lacking scientific support. The psychological appeal of astrology, its offer of meaning and guidance in an uncertain world, its provision of archetypal frameworks for understanding personality and relationships, gives it enduring cultural significance even as its factual claims are rejected by scientific consensus. The constellation Capricornus, as the 10th sign of the zodiac, maintains its astrological associations in contemporary popular culture, even as astronomers study it as a region of space containing physically explicable stellar phenomena. The precession of the equinoxes, that slow wobble in Earth's rotational axis, discovered by Hipparchus, has caused a significant shift in the relationship between the zodiacal constellations and the astrological signs that share their names. Due to precession, the position of the Sun against the background stars has shifted by approximately one full zodiacal constellation over the past 2,000 years. When someone is said to be born under the sign of Capricorn, in astrological terms, meaning the Sun was in that zodiacal region at their birth, the Sun is actually located in the constellation Sagittarius in astronomical terms. This discrepancy between tropical astrology, which is based on the seasons and ignores precession, and the actual astronomical positions of celestial bodies further illustrates the disconnection between astrological tradition and astronomical reality. The modern scientific understanding of Capricornus, based on detailed observations across multiple wavelengths of light and sophisticated theoretical models of stellar structure and evolution, reveals a constellation far more complex and dynamic than ancient observers could have imagined. The stars we see are at vastly different distances, their apparent proximity in the sky being merely a projection effect. Deneb Algedi at 39 light-years and the components of Alpha Capricorni at 109 and 690 light-years are separated by immense gulfs of space, having no physical connection despite appearing close together from our earthly vantage point. Each star in Capricornus is a dynamic system, not a fixed eternal light but a changing, evolving entity with a beginning, a long, stable period, and an eventual end. The giant stars we observe have swollen in size as they exhausted their core hydrogen and began fusing heavier elements. They will eventually shed their outer layers, creating planetary nebulae, while their cores collapse into white dwarfs. The main sequence stars still burning hydrogen will continue in their current state for millions or billions of years before beginning their own evolutionary transformations. The discovery that stars are not eternal, that they are born from clouds of gas and dust, shine for a finite time, and then die, represents one of the great insights of 20th century astronomy. This understanding of stellar evolution provides a framework for comprehending the life cycles of stars, the chemical enrichment of galaxies over time, and the origins of the elements that make up planets and living organisms. The realization that we are made of matter forged in stellar cores and supernova explosions, that we are literally made of stardust, creates a profound connection between humanity and the cosmos that rivals any mythological narrative. The process of star formation, which occurs in giant molecular clouds throughout our galaxy and other galaxies, demonstrates the dynamic nature of the cosmos. These clouds, composed primarily of hydrogen molecules with traces of heavier elements, are the coldest, densest regions of interstellar space. When a portion of such a cloud becomes sufficiently dense, perhaps triggered by a shock wave from a nearby supernova or by gravitational perturbations from passing stars, it begins to collapse under its own gravity. As the cloud collapses, it fragments into smaller clumps, each of which may form one or more stars. The collapsing material heats up due to gravitational compression, eventually becoming hot and dense enough at the center to ignite nuclear fusion. When fusion begins, converting hydrogen into helium and releasing tremendous energy, a star is born. The outward pressure from this fusion energy balances the inward pull of gravity, creating a stable configuration that can last for millions or billions of years depending on the star's mass. Massive stars burn through their fuel quickly, living for only millions of years, while smaller stars like our Sun can shine for 10 billion years or more. The stars visible in Capricornus represent various stages in this stellar life cycle. Some are still in their main sequence phase, steadily converting hydrogen to helium. Others have evolved beyond this stable period and are approaching their eventual demise. By studying stars at different evolutionary stages, astronomers can piece together the complete life story of stellar objects, understanding how stars of different masses evolve over time and what ultimate fates await them. The globular cluster Messier 30 within Capricornus provides a particularly valuable laboratory for studying stellar evolution. Because all the stars in a globular cluster formed at approximately the same time from the same initial cloud of material, they share a common age and initial chemical composition. The differences between stars in the cluster reflect only their different masses, allowing astronomers to test theoretical models of stellar evolution against observed populations of stars at various evolutionary stages. The most massive stars in Messier 30 have long since evolved off the main sequence and died, while the lowest mass stars remain on the main sequence, essentially unchanged since the cluster's formation over 10 billion years ago. The chemical composition of stars in globular clusters, typically much lower in heavy elements than stars in the galactic disk, like our Sun, provides evidence about the history of chemical enrichment in our galaxy. The early universe, emerging from the Big Bang approximately 13.8 billion years ago, contained only hydrogen, helium, and traces of lithium. All heavier elements were synthesized later in stellar cores through nuclear fusion, and then dispersed into space by stellar winds and supernova explosions. Over time, successive generations of stars have gradually enriched the interstellar medium with heavier elements, so that stars forming today contain much higher proportions of these elements than the first generation of stars. This process of cosmic chemical evolution explains why planets exist at all. Rocky planets like Earth are composed primarily of heavy elements like iron, silicon, oxygen, and others that were created in stars. The very existence of Earth and everything on it depends on billions of years of stellar nucleosynthesis occurring in countless stars throughout our galaxy's history. When we observe the ancient stars in Messier 30, we are looking at objects that formed when the galaxy was young and the universe had only recently begun producing the elements necessary for planets and life. The mythology of Capricornus, with its themes of transformation and adaptation, resonates interestingly with this scientific narrative of cosmic evolution. The sea goat, changing from one form to another, can be seen as a metaphor for the transformations that occur throughout cosmic history. Stars transform hydrogen into heavier elements. Dying stars transform into white dwarfs, neutron stars, or black holes. Clouds of gas and dust transform into new generations of stars and planets. Life itself represents a transformation of non-living matter into complex, self-organizing, reproducing systems. The ability of the sea goat to inhabit both land and water, to navigate different realms, parallels humanity's position in the cosmos. We are terrestrial beings, evolved on this particular planet, adapted to its specific conditions of gravity, atmosphere, and temperature. Yet we are also cosmic beings, made of matter forged in stars, subject to the same physical laws that govern the entire universe, capable through science and technology of extending our reach beyond our planetary home. We inhabit the interface between the local and the universal, between our particular earthly existence and our participation in cosmic processes. The story of Pan fleeing from Typhon and transforming in his panic speaks to the reality that change often comes not through calm deliberation, but through crisis and necessity. Evolution itself operates through this principle, with environmental challenges and changing conditions driving adaptation and transformation. Species that cannot adapt become extinct. Those that successfully navigate changing circumstances survive and proliferate. The incomplete or awkward nature of Pan's transformation, becoming a hybrid creature rather than fully fish or fully goat, reflects the reality that adaptation is often imperfect, that solutions to problems are frequently compromises rather than ideal outcomes. This theme of necessary adaptation carries contemporary relevance as humanity faces unprecedented challenges. Climate change, environmental degradation, resource depletion, technological disruption, all of these require adaptive responses from human societies. Like Pan confronting Typhon, we face threats that demand transformation, that require us to become something we have not been before. The question is whether we can transform successfully, whether our adaptations will be sufficient to survive the challenges we face, or whether, like Bellerophon falling from Pegasus, we will fail through hubris and poor judgment. The sea goat's association with the winter solstice, that moment of maximum darkness that nevertheless contains the promise of returning light, offers a framework for understanding crisis and renewal. The darkest moment is also the turning point. When things seem most challenging, when darkness appears overwhelming, that is precisely when the turn toward light begins, though it may not be immediately apparent. This cyclical understanding of time, where decline inevitably gives way to renewal, contrasts with linear narratives of either constant progress or inevitable decay. The astronomical reality of the solstice, caused by the tilt of Earth's rotational axis relative to the plane of its orbit, demonstrates how cosmic geometry affects earthly experience. If Earth's axis were perpendicular to its orbital plane, there would be no seasons, no varying lengths of day throughout the year, no solstices or equinoxes. The 23.5-degree tilt of Earth's axis creates the seasonal cycle that has shaped the evolution of life on our planet and the development of human civilizations. The solstices and equinoxes, those 4 moments when the sun reaches extreme or midpoint positions in its annual journey, have served as temporal markers for organizing human activities since prehistoric times. The ancient monuments at Stonehenge in England, Newgrange in Ireland, and numerous other sites around the world were aligned to mark solstices and equinoxes, demonstrating the importance these astronomical events held for ancient peoples. The effort required to construct these monuments, moving massive stones and arranging them in precise alignments, testifies to the cultural and religious significance of astronomical observation. These sites served as calendars, temples, and gathering places, integrating practical timekeeping with sacred ritual and community cohesion. The seasonal cycle marked by the sun's journey through the zodiacal constellations organized agricultural activities, religious festivals, and social life in ancient societies. The appearance of Capricornus in the evening sky, though the constellation itself is faint, occurred at a time when the sun was entering this region during daylight hours, invisible against the bright sky. The heliacal rising of bright stars near Capricornus, their first appearance in the dawn sky after being lost in the sun's glare, provided more easily observable markers of this seasonal period. The Roman historian and naturalist Pliny the Elder, working in the 1st century of the Common Era, described in his Natural History various astronomical and meteorological phenomena, including the influences supposedly exerted by different constellations and stars. While much of Pliny's work contains material we would now classify as superstition or error, it also preserves valuable information about ancient observations and beliefs. His encyclopedic approach, attempting to compile all known information about the natural world, reflects the Roman intellectual tradition of gathering and systematizing knowledge. The transmission of astronomical knowledge through written texts, passed down through generations and translated between languages, allowed cumulative progress in understanding celestial phenomena. Each generation could build on the observations and insights of previous astronomers, gradually refining measurements, correcting errors, and developing more sophisticated theoretical frameworks. This cumulative nature of scientific knowledge distinguishes it from other forms of cultural transmission and explains the accelerating pace of discovery in recent centuries. The invention of the telescope in the early 17th century revolutionized astronomy by allowing observation of celestial objects with unprecedented detail and sensitivity. Galileo's observations of Jupiter's moons, the phases of Venus, the mountains on the moon, and countless previously unseen stars demonstrated that the heavens contained far more than was visible to the naked eye. Subsequent improvements in telescope technology, from the modest refractors of the 17th century to the massive reflectors and sophisticated space-based observatories of the present day, have continually expanded the range and precision of astronomical observation. The stars of Capricornus, examined through modern telescopes and analyzed with spectroscopic techniques, reveal their physical natures in detail impossible for ancient observers to obtain. We can measure their temperatures, determine their chemical compositions, calculate their distances, estimate their masses, and predict their evolutionary futures. This detailed physical understanding, while it may seem to remove some mystery from the stars, actually reveals them to be far more interesting and complex than classical astronomy recognized. The discovery that many stars are actually binary or multiple systems, with two or more stars orbiting their common center of mass, demonstrates that single stars like our Sun are not the universal norm. The gravitational interactions in multiple star systems can produce complex orbital dynamics with potential implications for any planets that might orbit these stars. A planet in a binary star system might experience unusual seasons or varying amounts of stellar radiation as the two stars orbit each other, creating conditions very different from Earth's relatively stable solar environment. The field of exoplanet studies, emerging in the 1990s with the first confirmed detections of planets around other stars, has revealed that planetary systems are common and diverse. Many exoplanets detected so far are quite different from anything in our solar system. Hot Jupiters, massive gas giants orbiting very close to their parent stars, were unexpected but have proven common. Super-Earths, planets larger than Earth but smaller than Neptune, represent a category of world absent from our solar system but apparently common elsewhere. Ice giants, lava worlds, water worlds, and other exotic planet types have been discovered or theorized. The possibility that some stars in Capricornus host planets with conditions suitable for life remains speculative but intriguing. The famous Drake equation, formulated by astronomer Frank Drake in 1961, attempts to estimate the number of communicative civilizations in our galaxy by multiplying together various factors: the rate of star formation, the fraction of stars with planets, the number of habitable planets per system, the fraction of habitable planets where life arises, the fraction where intelligent life evolves, the fraction that develop technology capable of interstellar communication, and the length of time such civilizations remain detectable. The values for most of these factors remain highly uncertain, leading to estimates for the number of civilizations ranging from Earth being unique to millions of civilizations existing in our galaxy alone. The Fermi paradox asks why, if civilizations are common, we have not detected any evidence of them. Various solutions have been proposed, from the rarity of life to self-destructive tendencies of technological civilizations to the vast distances between stars making detection or contact extremely difficult. The question remains one of the great mysteries of our time. The contemplation of possible life elsewhere in the universe, perhaps on planets orbiting stars within Capricornus or any of the other constellations, provokes profound questions about the nature and meaning of life. If life is common in the universe, arising wherever conditions permit, then Earth represents just one example of a general phenomenon. If intelligence and consciousness are also common, then humanity is not unique, but one instance of a universal process of cosmic self-awareness. These possibilities, while speculative, expand our conception of our place in the cosmos and our understanding of life's significance. Alternatively, if Earth is unique or nearly unique, if life is an extraordinary improbable accident that has occurred nowhere else or almost nowhere else, then our planet and its biosphere represent something precious and irreplaceable. The emergence of consciousness, intelligence, and technological civilization would be even more remarkable if it has occurred only here. Either conclusion, whether life is common or rare, carries profound implications for how we understand ourselves and our responsibilities. The constellation Capricornus, that faint pattern of stars representing an ancient hybrid creature, connects us to these deep questions. Those distant suns might illuminate worlds where other beings contemplate their own night skies, creating their own constellations and myths, developing their own sciences, asking their own questions about existence and meaning. Or they might shine on lifeless worlds of rock and gas, beautiful but barren, with no consciousness present to appreciate them. We do not yet know. What we do know is that the universe revealed by modern astronomy is vast almost beyond comprehension, ancient beyond everyday experience, and filled with phenomena of extraordinary diversity and complexity. The cosmic story told by contemporary science, from the Big Bang through galaxy formation, stellar evolution, the emergence of heavy elements, the formation of planets, and potentially the origin of life, represents an epic narrative that rivals any mythology in scope and grandeur. The sea goat swimming through the celestial ocean serves as a symbol for navigating this vast cosmos. We are small creatures on a small planet, orbiting an ordinary star in one galaxy among trillions. Yet we are also extraordinary in our capacity for understanding, for creating meaning, for contemplating existence itself. The dual nature of the sea goat, part terrestrial and part aquatic, reflects our own dual nature as both physical beings subject to natural laws and conscious minds, capable of transcending immediate circumstances through thought and imagination. As the night deepens and Capricornus moves slowly westward in its nightly arc across the sky, following the apparent rotation of the celestial sphere caused by Earth's spin, we can reflect on the multiple layers of meaning embedded in this constellation. We see the physical reality of stars at various distances and evolutionary stages, each following its own path through space and time. We recognize the pattern imposed by human imagination, the outline of a sea goat that ancient observers projected onto these scattered points of light. We recall the myths and stories that have been associated with this pattern for thousands of years, tales of transformation and survival, of gods fleeing monsters, of adaptation to changing circumstances. All these layers coexist without contradiction. The scientific understanding of the stars as physical objects does not erase their mythological significance. The recognition that constellations are arbitrary human constructs does not diminish their cultural and aesthetic value. The ancient myths remain meaningful even though we no longer believe in their literal truth. Each way of engaging with the constellation adds depth and richness to the experience of observing it. The practice of stargazing, of taking time to observe the night sky and contemplate the cosmos, offers benefits that extend beyond astronomical knowledge. There is something profoundly calming about looking up at the stars, something that puts daily concerns into perspective. The stars remind us that we are part of something much larger than ourselves, that our individual problems and worries, though real and important to us, occur within a context of immense spatial and temporal scales. This perspective can provide comfort and peace, a sense of connection to the eternal rhythms of the cosmos. The seasonal appearance of Capricornus, rising in the southeast during summer evenings and reaching its highest point in the southern sky during late summer and early autumn, has marked the passage of time for countless generations. Agricultural societies timed their activities by the positions of the stars. Sailors navigated by celestial patterns. Religious festivals were scheduled according to astronomical events. This integration of astronomy into daily life reflected a worldview in which heaven and earth were intimately connected, where celestial patterns provided structure and meaning to terrestrial existence. In our modern world, with artificial lighting obscuring the stars and digital calendars replacing celestial timekeeping, this connection to the night sky has been largely lost for many people. The dark sky has become a rarity rather than a nightly experience. Many children grow up never seeing the Milky Way or learning to identify constellations. This represents a real cultural loss, a disconnection from nature and from the cosmic context that shaped human consciousness throughout our evolutionary history. Efforts to preserve dark sky areas and to reconnect people with the night sky have become increasingly important. Organizations dedicated to dark sky preservation work to reduce light pollution and to establish protected areas where the natural night environment remains intact. Educational programs teaching astronomy and stargazing help people rediscover the wonder of the night sky. These efforts recognize that the stars are part of our natural heritage, that access to a dark sky and the experience of viewing the cosmos directly is valuable for psychological, cultural, and scientific reasons. When we do have the opportunity to observe Capricornus from a truly dark location, away from city lights and under clear skies, the constellation reveals more of its subtle beauty. The faint stars that fill in the pattern become visible, suggesting the form of the creature more clearly. The background glow of the Milky Way, that luminous band of our galaxy's disk seen edge-on, flows through this region of sky, providing context for the constellation. Binoculars or a small telescope reveal the globular cluster Messier 30, that ancient spherical swarm of hundreds of thousands of stars bound together by gravity. The patient observer, allowing their eyes to adapt fully to darkness over 20 or 30 minutes, will find that more and more stars emerge from the background. The night sky is not a static picture, but a gradually revealing landscape, offering more detail and subtlety the longer one observes. This process of dark adaptation, as the eye's pupils dilate and the rod cells in the retina become more sensitive, demonstrates the remarkable capabilities of human vision even without technological aids. The ancient astronomers, who first catalogued the constellations, possessed this intimate familiarity with the night sky that comes only from hundreds or thousands of hours of direct observation. They knew the stars as we might know the features of a beloved landscape, recognizing individual stars and their relationships, noticing subtle changes in brightness or position, tracking the movements of planets against the background stars. This deep observational knowledge, accumulated over many lifetimes and passed down through generations, formed the foundation of ancient astronomy. The myths associated with the constellations served multiple functions in ancient cultures. They provided entertainment and moral instruction through their narratives of gods and heroes. They encoded astronomical knowledge in memorable story form, making it easier to remember which stars belonged to which constellations and when particular patterns were visible. They connected celestial patterns to important cultural values and seasonal activities, and they satisfied the human need for meaning, for seeing the cosmos as something more than random arrangements of matter, as a realm where stories unfold and where human concerns have cosmic significance. The story of Pan transforming into the sea-goat, whether we interpret it as the literal truth believed by ancient peoples, or as a symbolic narrative expressing deeper truths about change and adaptation, continues to offer insights relevant to contemporary life. We live in a time of rapid transformation, when technological, environmental, and social changes occur at accelerating rates. Like Pan fleeing from Typhon, we often feel pursued by threats and challenges that demand rapid response and adaptation. The question is whether our adaptations will be successful, whether we can transform in ways that allow us to thrive in changed circumstances, or whether our transformations will be incomplete or inadequate. The sea-goat's dual nature, its ability to inhabit both terrestrial and aquatic realms, suggests that versatility and adaptability are valuable traits. In an uncertain and changing world, the ability to function in different contexts, to draw on different skill sets, to navigate between different domains becomes increasingly important. The specialist who can only thrive in one narrow niche is vulnerable when that niche disappears. The generalist who can adapt to various circumstances has better survival prospects, yet the story also acknowledges that transformation is often imperfect. Pan becomes neither fully fish nor fully goat but a hybrid of both. This reflects the reality that change rarely produces ideal outcomes. We carry forward elements of what we were even as we become something new. Our past shapes our present, and transformation is always a negotiation between what we have been and what we are becoming. The sea-goat, swimming through celestial waters with its goat head above the surface and its fish tail below, embodies this ongoing negotiation between different aspects of being, the perpetual balancing act of existence. The ancient philosophical concept of becoming, as opposed to static being, finds expression in the image of the sea-goat. The Greek philosopher Heraclitus, working in the 6th century before the Common Era, famously stated that one cannot step into the same river twice, emphasizing the constant flux and change that characterizes reality. Everything is always in process, always becoming something other than what it was. The sea goat, caught in the act of transformation, permanently fixed in a hybrid state, represents this philosophical insight that existence is fundamentally dynamic rather than static. The Stoic philosophers of ancient Greece and Rome developed an ethical philosophy based on accepting what cannot be changed, while striving to improve what can be influenced. The Stoic sage sought to distinguish between things within one's control, primarily one's own thoughts and responses, and things outside one's control, including external circumstances and other people's actions. This philosophical stance, emphasizing rationality, virtue, and acceptance of fate, found symbolic expression in the zodiacal imagery, with each sign representing different aspects of human experience and different approaches to life's challenges. The association of Capricornus with discipline, responsibility, patience, and long-term planning in astrological tradition, whether or not one accepts astrology's premises, reflects observations about the qualities needed during the season when the sun occupies this region of the zodiac. Winter demands preparation, foresight, and the ability to endure difficult conditions. The creatures and peoples who survive winter are those who planned ahead, who conserved resources, who maintained discipline during times of scarcity. The goat, known for its ability to survive in harsh mountainous terrain, became a symbol of these survival qualities. The fishtail portion of the sea goat adds another dimension to this symbolism. Fish inhabit water, that element associated throughout world mythologies with emotion, the unconscious, mystery, and the depths of the psyche. The sea goat thus combines earthy practicality and mountainous ambition with watery emotional depths and unconscious wisdom. This combination suggests a complete being, one that integrates rational planning with emotional awareness, earthly concerns with spiritual or psychological depths. The ancient Mesopotamian deity Enki, associated with the earliest versions of the goatfish symbolism, embodied precisely this integration of practical and mystical wisdom. Enki was the god who taught humanity the arts of civilization, agriculture, writing, building, law, and ritual. Yet he was also associated with magic, dreams, and the mysterious subterranean waters from which life and wisdom emerged. He represented intelligence applied to practical problems, but also the deeper wisdom that comes from understanding the hidden patterns underlying surface appearances. In one famous Sumerian myth, when the other gods decided to destroy humanity through a great flood, Enki warned the hero Atrahasis, instructing him to build an ark and save himself, his family, and representatives of all living creatures. This story, which clearly influenced the later biblical narrative of Noah and the flood, presents Enki as humanity's protector and benefactor, the god who values human life and civilization enough to circumvent the destructive plans of other deities. His association with water takes on multiple meanings in this context: water as the source of life and fertility, but also water as the instrument of destruction, and water as the medium through which salvation is achieved. The flood myths that appear in numerous ancient cultures, from Mesopotamia to Greece to India to indigenous American traditions, often feature a wise figure who receives warning and builds a vessel for survival. These stories speak to universal human experiences of catastrophic natural disasters, the fragility of civilization in the face of nature's power, and the hope that wisdom and preparation can enable survival even in the face of overwhelming destruction. The sea goat, able to navigate both land and water, becomes a symbol of this ability to survive the flood, to adapt to catastrophically changed circumstances. The precession of the equinoxes, that slow wobble in Earth's axis discovered by Hipparchus, has gradually shifted the relationship between the seasons and the zodiacal constellations over the millennia. In ancient Babylonian times, when the zodiacal system was first being developed, the winter solstice occurred when the sun was positioned in the constellation we now call Capricornus. Over the subsequent 2,000 years, precession has shifted this alignment so that the winter solstice now occurs when the sun is in the constellation Sagittarius. However, astrological tradition retained the older associations so that the sign of Capricorn in astrology still corresponds to the winter solstice period, even though the constellation Capricornus is no longer at that position. This discrepancy between astronomical reality and astrological tradition highlights the difference between these two approaches to the heavens. Astronomy is concerned with physical reality, with the actual positions and motions of celestial bodies, with understanding the universe as it is. Astrology, at least in its tropical form practiced in the West, is based on a symbolic system tied to the seasons and the relationship between Sun and Earth, regardless of the actual background constellations. Whether one views this as evidence that astrology is outdated superstition, or as confirmation that astrology is symbolic rather than literal depends on one's perspective. The question of whether celestial bodies influence terrestrial affairs and human behavior, the central claim of astrology, has been investigated scientifically and found lacking in evidence. Controlled studies have failed to demonstrate that astrological predictions perform better than chance, and no plausible physical mechanism has been identified by which the positions of planets at one's birth could influence personality or destiny. The gravitational and electromagnetic influences of distant planets are vanishingly small compared to nearby terrestrial sources. From a scientific perspective, astrology does not hold up as a system of cause and effect. Yet the psychological appeal of astrology persists, and its symbolic framework continues to provide meaning for many people. The archetypal patterns associated with the zodiacal signs, including Capricorn, resonate with human experiences and offer a language for discussing personality, relationships, and life challenges. Carl Jung, the Swiss psychiatrist and founder of analytical psychology, engaged extensively with astrological symbolism, not because he believed planets caused personality traits, but because he found the symbolic system useful for exploring psychological patterns and archetypes in the collective unconscious. From this Jungian perspective, the sea goat represents an archetypal image of transformation and integration, of the joining of opposites, of the ability to navigate between different realms of experience. The archetype speaks to something deep in the human psyche that recognizes the need for both practical earthly competence and emotional or spiritual depth, for both the climb up the mountain toward achievement and the dive into the waters toward inner understanding. Whether one attributes power to this symbolism through supernatural mechanisms or through psychological projection and resonance, the images retain their evocative power. The stars of Capricornus themselves, those actual physical suns shining across the light years, continue their own evolutionary journeys regardless of the stories humans tell about them. Deneb Algedi, that white giant at the tail of the sea goat, has exhausted the hydrogen in its core and is now burning helium in a shell around an inert carbon-oxygen core. Eventually, perhaps in a few million years, it will expand into a red giant, swell to enormous size, then shed its outer layers to create a planetary nebula while its core collapses into a white dwarf. This entire dramatic transformation will occur on timescales that dwarf human history, yet to the star itself, this represents the normal course of stellar evolution. The multiple star systems in Capricornus, like Alpha Capricorni with its 4 component stars and Deneb Algedi with its companions, demonstrate that gravitationally bound systems of 2 or more stars are common in our galaxy. These systems form when collapsing clouds of gas fragment into multiple cores, each of which becomes a star. The resulting stars remain gravitationally bound, orbiting their common center of mass in orbits that can range from hours or days for very close binaries to millions of years for widely separated companions. The existence of planets in binary or multiple star systems has been confirmed by exoplanet discoveries. Some planets orbit one member of a binary pair, staying close to one star while the other star orbits at a greater distance. Other planets orbit both stars in what is called a circumbinary orbit, experiencing rises and settings of 2 suns. These exotic configurations once confined to science fiction, have been revealed as actual realities through astronomical observation. The diversity of planetary system architectures continues to surprise researchers and expand our understanding of what is possible in the universe. The question of whether life could exist on planets in binary or multiple star systems has been explored theoretically. The additional complexity of orbital dynamics and stellar radiation in such systems creates challenges for planetary habitability, but does not necessarily preclude life. A planet in a stable orbit within the habitable zone, where liquid water can exist on its surface, might support life even in a multiple star system. The night sky on such a world would be dramatically different from Earth's, with multiple suns rising and setting at different times, creating complex patterns of day and night, unlike anything humans have experienced. Imagining life on worlds orbiting stars in Capricornus or any other constellation invites us to consider how different the development of science and culture might be under different circumstances. Would beings on a planet with 2 or 3 suns develop the same understanding of solar systems and stellar evolution that humans have? Would their mythology feature different kinds of stories, shaped by their experience of multiple sources of light and heat? Would their sense of time and rhythm be fundamentally different from ours, adapted to more complex cycles of illumination? These speculative questions, while they may never be answered through direct observation, encourage us to think beyond our own limited experience, to recognize that Earth's conditions and human perspectives are not universal. The universe likely contains vast diversity, not only in physical conditions, but potentially in forms of life and consciousness. Our human ways of understanding and organizing experience are shaped by our particular evolutionary history and environmental context. Other beings, evolved under different conditions, would inevitably develop different modes of thought and different approaches to understanding existence. The constellation Capricornus, viewed from Earth, appears as a particular pattern with specific associations. Viewed from a planet orbiting one of its stars, the pattern would be entirely different, with some stars appearing much brighter or fainter depending on distance, and with many stars in other directions that we do not see from Earth. The constellations are thus completely dependent on the observer's location, local creations that have no objective existence in space. Yet they are not therefore meaningless or arbitrary. They represent the human capacity to find pattern and create meaning, to organize experience in ways that serve cognitive and cultural functions. The project of astronomy, seeking to understand the actual physical reality underlying the appearances we observe, represents humanity's attempt to move beyond the limitations of our particular perspective toward a more universal understanding. We cannot observe the universe from all possible vantage points, but we can use mathematics and physics to model how things would appear from other locations, to understand the three-dimensional reality that underlies the two-dimensional patterns we see projected on the celestial sphere. This movement from appearance to reality, from local perspective to universal understanding, characterizes the scientific method more broadly. Science seeks to identify the objective features of reality that hold regardless of observer position or cultural framework. The laws of physics, as far as we can determine, are the same everywhere in the universe. Stars in Capricornus obey the same gravitational and thermodynamic principles as stars in our solar neighborhood. The chemistry of stellar nucleosynthesis follows the same quantum mechanical rules regardless of location. Yet this scientific universalism coexists with recognition that our access to reality is always mediated through human perception and cognition, through instruments and theories that are products of human invention. We can never completely transcend our human perspective, even as we strive for objectivity and universal understanding. The constellation Capricornus thus represents both the local and the universal, a local pattern imposed by human imagination on stars that themselves are universal physical objects following natural laws. As autumn progresses and the nights grow longer, Capricornus shifts westward in the evening sky, setting earlier each night as Earth's orbital motion carries us around the sun and changes our nighttime view. The seasonal progression of constellations, that steady parade of different star patterns throughout the year, reflects our planet's journey through space. We are passengers on a spacecraft, Earth, that orbits the Sun at approximately 30 kilometers per second, completing one orbit every 365.25 days. This motion, imperceptible in our daily experience, is nevertheless real and consequential, creating the seasons and the changing night sky. The fact that we do not feel this motion, that Earth seems stationary beneath our feet, despite its rapid movement through space, made the heliocentric model of the solar system difficult for many people to accept when it was first proposed. Common sense suggests that Earth is stationary and that the Sun, Moon, and stars move around us. The appearances support the geocentric model. It required careful observation and mathematical analysis to recognize that appearances can be deceiving, that a simpler and more elegant explanation for celestial motions places the Sun at the center with Earth as one planet among several. This triumph of mathematical reasoning over immediate sensory experience represents a crucial turning point in human intellectual history. The realization that reality is not always as it appears, that deeper understanding requires moving beyond surface observations to underlying causes, enabled the development of modern science. The stars in Capricornus do not actually move in circles around Earth each night. Rather, Earth rotates on its axis, creating the appearance of stellar motion. The Sun does not move through the zodiacal constellations. Earth orbits the Sun, changing our nighttime view direction as we journey around our star. These insights, which may seem obvious to us today, were hard-won achievements requiring centuries of observation, debate, and theoretical development. The astronomers who contributed to this transformation in understanding, from Aristarchus, who proposed a heliocentric model in ancient Greece, to Copernicus, who revived this idea in the Renaissance, to Kepler, who discovered the elliptical nature of planetary orbits, to Galileo, whose telescopic observations provided supporting evidence, to Newton, who explained celestial motions through universal gravitation. All these thinkers built upon the work of their predecessors while adding crucial new insights. The cumulative and progressive nature of scientific knowledge distinguishes it from other forms of cultural transmission. While artistic styles and philosophical schools may come and go, with later periods sometimes returning to earlier approaches, science generally builds upon previous discoveries in a way that leads to steadily increasing understanding. We know more about the universe today than humans did a century ago, and they knew more than humans did a millennium ago. This progressive accumulation of knowledge, while not always smooth or linear, represents one of humanity's great collective achievements. The constellation Capricornus, studied scientifically, has revealed far more than ancient observers could have imagined. We have measured the distances to its stars, analyzed their compositions, understood their life cycles, detected their companions, and placed them within the larger context of galactic structure and evolution. We have found globular clusters and galaxies within its boundaries, each with its own story. We have even begun to discover planets around some of its stars, worlds that might harbor conditions suitable for life. Yet for all this increased knowledge, the sense of wonder and mystery remains. The more we learn about the universe, the more we realize how much remains unknown. Every answer generates new questions. Every discovery reveals new phenomena requiring explanation. The stars of Capricornus, though we understand them better than ancient astronomers could have dreamed, still hold mysteries. We do not fully understand the detailed mechanisms of stellar evolution, the precise conditions under which planets form, the likelihood of life emerging, or countless other questions that current research seeks to address. This ongoing process of discovery, this endless frontier of expanding knowledge, gives contemporary science its excitement and vitality. We are not at the end of the story, but in the middle of an ongoing narrative of exploration and understanding. Future generations will look back on our current knowledge as incomplete and limited, just as we recognize the limitations of ancient astronomy. Yet we are all part of the same project, the human endeavor to understand the cosmos and our place within it. The mythology of the sea goat, that ancient story of transformation and adaptation continues to resonate because it addresses something fundamental about existence itself. We are all engaged in ongoing transformation, constantly becoming something other than what we were. The cells in our bodies are replaced over time, our thoughts and beliefs evolve with experience, our relationships and circumstances change. The stable self is in some sense an illusion. We are processes rather than fixed entities, patterns of organization that persist through time while the underlying material and even the specific patterns change. This recognition of impermanence and change, central to Buddhist philosophy and appearing in various forms throughout world philosophical traditions, finds symbolic expression in the image of the sea goat. The creature caught between forms, neither fully one thing nor another, represents the human condition of perpetual becoming. We are always in transition, always adapting to new circumstances, always negotiating between different aspects of our nature and different demands on our being. The ability to accept and even embrace this condition of perpetual transformation, rather than clinging to an illusory stability, represents a kind of wisdom that the sea goat symbolizes. The creature does not resist its hybrid nature, but swims confidently through celestial waters, both goat and fish, both terrestrial and aquatic, embodying the possibility of successful adaptation to changing circumstances. This acceptance of duality and change, rather than insisting on simple categories and permanent states, reflects a mature understanding of reality's complexity. The night sky itself, when observed over months and years, reveals this quality of change within constancy. The constellations remain recognizable, their overall patterns unchanging on human timescales, yet the detailed positions of stars gradually shift due to their individual proper motions through space. The planets wander among the fixed stars, their positions constantly changing as they orbit the sun. The moon waxes and wanes through its monthly cycle. Comets occasionally appear, blazing across the sky before fading away. Meteor showers offer brief displays of shooting stars. Variable stars brighten and dim according to their own rhythms. This dynamic quality of the heavens, the combination of regularity and change, pattern and variation, mirrors the nature of existence more generally. There are rhythms and patterns that we can recognize and rely upon, seasonal cycles and celestial regularities that have remained constant throughout human history. Yet within these larger patterns, variation and change occur constantly. Individual lives unfold unpredictably even as populations follow statistical trends. Historical events surprise even as longer-term patterns emerge when viewed across centuries. The sea goat swimming through the celestial ocean represents navigation through this complex reality of pattern and change. The creature uses its goat legs to climb toward goals and ambitions, employing discipline and determination to achieve difficult objectives. Yet it also uses its fish tail to swim through emotional and unconscious waters, adapting fluidly to circumstances, drawing on intuitive wisdom that complements rational planning. The integration of these different modes of being and knowing enables successful navigation through life's challenges. In contemporary psychology, the concept of emotional intelligence, the ability to recognize and manage one's own emotions while also understanding and responding appropriately to others' emotions, reflects this integration of rational and emotional capacities. Successful human functioning requires both cognitive abilities and emotional awareness, both logical planning and intuitive response, both goal-directed effort and adaptive flexibility. The sea goat, with its dual nature, symbolizes this necessary integration of different aspects of human capability. The ancient wisdom traditions recognized this need for integration in various ways. The Chinese philosophical concept of yin and yang, opposing yet complementary forces whose interaction generates all phenomena, expresses the idea that apparent opposites are actually interdependent aspects of a unified whole. The Hindu concept of Brahman, the ultimate reality underlying all appearances, encompasses both the unchanging eternal and the constantly changing phenomenal world. The Greek concept of logos, divine reason or pattern, was understood to manifest in both stable cosmic order and dynamic natural processes. These philosophical frameworks, developed independently in different cultures, converge on similar insights about the nature of reality and the human relationship to it. The recognition that existence involves both stability and change, both pattern and variation, both permanence and transformation, appears to be a universal human insight arising from careful observation and reflection on experience. The constellation Capricornus, with its hybrid sea goat combining terrestrial and aquatic natures, provides a vivid symbolic expression of these philosophical insights. As the night deepens and sleep approaches, as Capricornus continues its arc across the southern sky following the apparent rotation of the celestial sphere, we can rest in the knowledge that the cosmos continues its ancient patterns. The stars will rise and set tonight, as they have for billions of years before humans existed, and as they will for billions of years after our species has passed. The vastness of cosmic time and space, far from making human existence meaningless, actually highlights the remarkable improbability and preciousness of consciousness arising within the universe. We are improbable beings on an improbable planet, orbiting an ordinary star in an ordinary galaxy. The specific sequence of events that led to our existence, from the formation of our solar system to the emergence of life on Earth to the evolution of human intelligence, involved countless contingencies and near miracles. Had any of thousands of factors been slightly different, we would not be here. Yet here we are, capable of understanding at least partially the cosmic context within which we exist, able to tell stories about the stars and to unravel through science the physical nature of celestial objects. This dual capacity, for both mythological narrative and scientific analysis, for both storytelling and mathematical modeling, represents something distinctive about human consciousness. We are not content with either pure fact or pure fiction, but seek to integrate these different modes of understanding into comprehensive frameworks that satisfy both intellectual curiosity and emotional need. The constellation Capricornus, understood simultaneously as a pattern of physical stars and as a mythological symbol, demonstrates this integrative capacity. The sea goat reminds us that we too are hybrid creatures, products of both natural evolution and cultural development, shaped by both genetic inheritance and learned experience, driven by both biological imperatives and conscious intentions. We inhabit the boundary between nature and culture, between the given and the created, between determination and freedom. Like the sea goat, we must navigate different realms, applying different skills and drawing on different aspects of our being to respond appropriately to varying circumstances. The stars of Capricornus shine steadily through the night, their light traveling across the decades or centuries, separating them from Earth. That light, electromagnetic radiation generated by nuclear fusion in stellar cores, carries information about its source encoded in wavelength patterns that we have learned to read. The spectrum of a star tells us its temperature, composition, motion, and more. The light itself is ancient, generated long ago and only now reaching our eyes and instruments. When we observe the stars, we literally look back in time, seeing them not as they are now but as they were when their light began its journey toward us. This temporal depth, the fact that the cosmos we observe is a patchwork of different times stitched together by the finite speed of light, adds another layer of complexity to our understanding of the universe. There is no universal now that spans the cosmos. Different parts of the universe, separated by vast distances, cannot be in causal contact because insufficient time has passed for light or any influence to travel between them. The universe is structured not only spatially but temporally, with time itself behaving differently in different gravitational fields according to Einstein's general relativity. These counterintuitive features of reality, revealed by modern physics, remind us that the universe is stranger than our everyday experience suggests. Common sense, evolved for navigating terrestrial environments at human scales, provides limited guidance for understanding the very large, the very small, the very fast, or the very massive. We must rely on mathematics and careful empirical testing to explore these extreme domains where intuition fails. Yet even as we recognize the limitations of intuitive understanding in certain domains, we can also appreciate the value of narrative and metaphor for conveying meaning and significance. The story of the sea-goat, Pan's transformation in the face of mortal danger, speaks to experiences and insights that scientific language does not adequately capture. The emotional resonance of myth, the way stories engage our imagination and values, complements the precision and clarity of scientific description. The integration of these different ways of knowing, the ability to appreciate both the mythological significance and the astronomical reality of Capricornus, represents a mature relationship with human cultural heritage. We need not choose between ancient wisdom and modern science, between poetry and physics, between narrative and analysis. Each offers insights that the others cannot provide. Each addresses aspects of human experience and curiosity that require different modes of expression. As we drift toward sleep, images of the sea-goat swimming through celestial waters can accompany us into dreams. The creature's journey through the night sky mirrors our own journey through life, navigating between different realms, adapting to changing circumstances, integrating different aspects of our nature into a coherent whole. The faint stars of Capricornus, scattered across the southern summer sky, connect us to the ancient Babylonians who first recognized the goatfish in this region, to the Greeks who associated it with Pan's transformation, to medieval Islamic astronomers who carefully catalogued its stars. To all who have looked up and wondered about the patterns in the darkness, in the quiet of the night, with the stars wheeling overhead in their eternal dance, we find ourselves part of a story far larger and older than human civilization. We are brief participants in a cosmic drama that began nearly 14 billion years ago with the Big Bang and will continue for unimaginable eons into the future. The atoms that compose our bodies were forged in stellar cores and scattered through space by dying stars. We are literally made of stardust, temporary assemblages of ancient matter organized into complex patterns capable of thought and feeling. This scientific understanding of our origins and nature, far from diminishing our significance, actually reveals us to be remarkable phenomena within the cosmic story. Consciousness, intelligence, the capacity for love and art and science and wonder, these have emerged from the unconscious physical processes of the evolving universe. We are the universe become aware of itself, matter organized in such a way as to contemplate existence and ponder meaning. This is extraordinary regardless of whether it has happened once or many times across the vastness of space and time. The sea-goat, swimming through the darkness, carries these themes of emergence and transformation, of adaptation and survival, of integration and balance. The constellation Capricornus, shining quietly in the southern sky, invites us to reflect on our own hybrid nature, our own journey through different realms, our own need to navigate between competing demands and integrate different aspects of our being. The ancient symbol speaks to contemporary experience, demonstrating the enduring value of mythological thinking alongside scientific understanding. In the stillness of the deepening night, as consciousness gradually releases its grip and sleep begins to enfold us, the stars of Capricornus continue their ancient vigil. They have witnessed the entire span of human history, from prehistoric ancestors learning to control fire to modern civilization reaching toward the stars. They will continue long after humanity has passed, their light traveling through space toward unknown destinations, perhaps illuminating worlds where other beings look up and create their own constellations, tell their own stories, ask their own questions about existence and meaning. The sea-goat swims on through celestial waters, neither fully terrestrial nor fully aquatic, but something in between, something uniquely itself. In this hybrid form, we recognize our own situation, our own need to inhabit multiple realms, our own journey of continuous becoming. The faint stars mark its outline against the darkness, creating a pattern that exists only from our particular vantage point, yet has served for millennia as a meaningful symbol connecting generation to generation across the vast expanse of human cultural development. As sleep finally arrives, as the last conscious thoughts fade into dreams, the constellation Capricornus continues its nightly arc across the southern sky, faithful to the rhythms established billions of years ago, participating in patterns far larger than human comprehension. The sea goat swims eternally through darkness, a beacon of transformation and adaptation, a symbol of the integration of opposites, a reminder that survival and flourishing require navigating between different worlds and modes of being. The stars shine on, ancient and eternal in appearance, yet each following its own evolutionary journey from birth to eventual death, from stellar nursery to final transformation into white dwarf or supernova remnant. In this cosmic context, human life represents a brief, bright moment of consciousness and creativity, a temporary flowering of awareness in a universe that is mostly darkness and silence. Yet this brief moment has value and meaning precisely because it is brief, because consciousness is rare and precious, because the capacity to understand and appreciate the cosmos is remarkable regardless of its duration. The constellation Capricornus, observed and contemplated by countless generations, connects us to the vast stream of human experience and to the even vaster cosmic processes that made that experience possible. The night enfolds all in its gentle darkness, the stars continue their ancient dance, and the sea goat swims on through celestial waters, forever transforming, forever adapting, forever navigating between earth and ocean, between the known and the mysterious, between what we are and what we might become. In the quiet peace of the deepening night, under the watchful gaze of ancient stars, we rest in the knowledge that we are part of something far greater than ourselves, temporary participants in an ongoing cosmic story whose full meaning we may never completely understand, but whose beauty and mystery we can certainly appreciate and celebrate.